In this video we're going to look at one of the bits of kit we use when performing. As before, we don't know whether this will be of much interest to many of you out there, but we wanted to do this firstly to show that it's possible to get decent home recording results without breaking the bank, and secondly, the creation of guitar-based noise pollution is something that I have in common with my dad, and if I had to spend my childhood listening to his, the least he can do is spend his retirement listening to mine. Now, there are a number of problems, as I'm sure you can appreciate, that a musician might encounter when rehearsing or performing, and being perennially skint nerds, we wrote a custom piece of software to solve a few of ours. So in this video we'll be looking at setlist. As mentioned in an earlier video, the fact that our songs invariably contain more than two people can perform live means we need to produce stripped down backing track versions to play along to. Now, we could use a phone, a tablet, an MP3 player plugged into a mixing desk to play them in, but we instead decided to write a custom piece of software called Setlists that we'd run from a laptop. The reason for doing this was that in addition to playing the songs, we wanted it to display synced cues and chords in case we needed them, send MIDI commands to the pod to switch guitar settings and so on. Basically, we figured that if you write something yourself, it's always going to do exactly what you want it to do in the way that you want to do it. This is the setlist main screen, and as you can see it's split into two panes, left and right. The contents of the right side change depending on which of the four modes is selected from the buttons on the left. Currently it's in edit mode, so the right side displays a panel for creating and editing set lists. The tabs along the top correspond to the available set lists. You simply click to switch between them, although the leftmost tab is actually the button for creating a new empty set list. Below the tab strip is a text field for providing the set list name, and alongside that is the running time of both the main set and the encore. Then we have the list of songs that make up the set list. Each song comprises a drop down, so you can select a song and a set of buttons to delete the song, add another one, or move it up and down the set list to change the order. Each song also has a radio button associated with it that you can use to indicate that it's the beginning of the encore. The running times displayed next to the setlist name are therefore the total times of all the songs before the selected one and all the songs from the selected one to the end. At the bottom are a couple of utility buttons that let you copy the existing setlist to create a new one, clear it down, which essentially just empties it, or to delete it completely. There is also an option to export the setlist, but I'll explain that one in the nerdy bit towards the end of the video. Switching to the hardware screen, we can see that it really only consists of a couple of configuration options, the first of which is actually just for testing a USB foot controller. This is another custom creation of ours, and it was cobbled together simply to give us a nice easy way to control playback without having to use the touchpad or keyboard. Inside this fairly old school metal hard drive case, generously donated by our friend Piers, is a controller circuit that we cannibalised out of a cheap USB external keyboard. Once we'd wired that to the stomp buttons, we basically ended up with a box that can send 4 different key presses to the laptop, which setlist interprets as play, stop, next and previous. The other options on the hardware screen are for configuring the MIDI connection to the Line 6 pod, which we've covered in an earlier video. Once you've selected a USB device and MIDI channel, a grid of radio buttons appears so you can test the connection by remotely switching banks on the pod. Now, to actually play anything, we need to switch it to live or rehearsal. This displays the current set list on the right hand side with the first song highlighted ready. The dotted line indicates the beginning of the encore. On the left, we now have a gig timer at the top which starts running when the play button is pressed. Pressing play for a second time starts the highlighted song. At the bottom, there's an indicator as to which position the guitar selector switch should be in, a media player that shows a progress bar as the song plays, and the selected pod bank. Now, this is there so that it can be manually selected if need be, say for whatever reason the MIDI connection fails. During playback, 2 rows of boxes are displayed. The first row shows the song chords, which scroll from right to left, so that the middle box will therefore show the current chord, whereas the 2 outer boxes show the previous and next ones. The second row shows any other cues, which will often set to indicate when there are pauses or when bass or vocals need to start, etc. While a song is playing, the play button becomes a pause, so pressing it will freeze the song and pressing it again will continue. Stop naturally ends the song, although pressing stop a second time will halt and reset the gig timer. The only differences between live and rehearsal are that in live mode, songs are crossed out once they've finished playing and therefore cannot be played again. And pressing next or previous while a song is playing will do nothing, whereas in rehearsal mode it will stop the current song and move the highlighter. This is mainly to prevent accidentally buggering up playback in a live situation. Now, you might be wondering how we get all the information about the songs, chords and pod settings and so on into setlist, and that's where things get even rougher around the edges than they already are. It's also where it gets somewhat nerdy, so unless you're a developer, you might just want to sit there nodding politely and pretending to be interested. Now, because the need for setlist came at a time when we needed something quickly, it was actually written as a web browser application in HTML and JavaScript. So in a sense, it's basically a web page with JPlayer to play the MP3 files for the songs and a Java applet called MIDI Bridge to send commands to the pod. The data for the songs is stored in a giant JSON structure that contains the details, the chords and cues with all the timings, etc., as well as any tweaks that might need to be sent via MIDI during the song. This means we can set it to switch to different banks during a song, change individual effects settings and so on. Obviously this is all pretty clunky, and while it works it's far from ideal, particularly as Java applets are no longer supported in the latest browsers and you have to understand JavaScript object notation in order to actually update or add to the songs and data. In fact, the export function I mentioned earlier simply displays the raw JSON data for all the setlists, and you have to copy those into the external file to make sure they're saved for next time. We're currently in the process of rewriting setlist in pure Java with the aim of putting it on a Raspberry Pi or perhaps as a standalone mobile or tablet app, but it's a long-term project that only gets worked on in spare moments here and there, so for the time being, this is it. So that's setlist. It's very rough around the edges, but it does as well, and it has done as well in live performances and rehearsals for 5 years now, so we're weirdly fond of it. One of the aims of these videos was to show that it's possible to dabble in home recording, or in this case performing, on a limited budget, and when it comes to software, you can't get much more economical than something you've written entirely yourself for nothing. And with that, we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to check out our other videos, like our Facebook page and subscribe. We try to put up a new video every week, whether it's a new song or something like this. Bye!